Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. In this episode, I want to go over some interview tactics of how to get into the video game industry. Coming from a former recruiter in the game industry, I want to share some secrets I had while I was recruiting people for specific positions in the industry, what I looked for, the kind of people that would fit best in the positions, and the answers they'd give. Let's just get right into it. Smash JT. I started my YouTube channel as an extension to staying in the video game industry, but still being able to do my own thing. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, and make sure you get all the notifications from my channel going forward. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the interview process of getting into the video game industry. First off, a lot of what I'm going to go into here varies widely based off of the job you're looking for. For instance, quality assurance tester doesn't necessarily require previous experience in QA testing. It's recommended, it's helpful, but it's not required. The first thing I'd look for when interviewing someone for a quality assurance position is, are they stable in their home? Do they have a place to go to sleep at night? Do they have a car they can put gas in? Are they going to show up to work on time? Do they enjoy video games? That was a distant fourth, by the way. And do I feel like this person's going to be overall well received at the company, fitting in with the culture? And that's something you're going to hear me say a lot here. The culture of video game companies is so different from anything else I've ever worked in the past. It's very unique. Everyone has their own way of approaching things, lots of different personalities, and very different people will be there. Quirky is probably the best way I would put that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, just very different ways to look at life. And a lot of these people would have really funny stories, really cool things in history that they come from and how they got there. And all these things melding together at the company would create an environment of enjoyment for the most part. But as far as the quality assurance tester goes, that's basically the bottom of the barrel in the video game industry. Basically making minimum wage. You're looking at a max of $10, maybe $11 an hour in California. But outside of that, you're really not making any money. You might have situations where you need to work overtime because the game's coming down to the wire on release. But outside of that, you're not going to be making much more than $450 or $500 a week before taxes take home. And that is really challenging to live on the West Coast making that little amount of money. My major focus in the interviews would be, what's your home life like? How are you going to survive off of this pay? Do you have a stable living environment? Because we don't want to hire someone, put all this work into putting them to the position, and then find out that they're not able to sustain where they're living based off the pay that they're making. So the most important part of a quality assurance tester was, are they going to be able to afford to live off this salary? Didn't really necessarily mean, are they going to be a good employee here? It's, are they going to be consistent and punctual? And lastly, a distant third, are they going to be a good employee? That was obviously very important, but the pickings were slim to find people that were willing to work for that amount of money in the first place. Now, people have asked me how they get into higher positions in the video game industry, like a sound designer, or developer, or storyboard. How do I do any of this stuff? Well, in my experience, a lot of it is internal. These companies hire from within. Quality assurance testers would move up the ladder based off of going to school for what they want to become, using that as a ladder to get to that position at the company they're currently at. People ask, how do I get a job for a graphic artist if I've never worked as a graphic artist before? Well, the people I'd interview for graphic artists typically had experience in the video game industry already, but for those who didn't, they'd have an entire portfolio already made up to show me, to let me know this is their experience, this is their passion, this is what they're able to do. The first place to start if you're looking for a higher level position in the video game industry is to have your own website, a portfolio online to place all the links to everything you've created. That way, when you're in the interview, you can give that information to the hiring manager and say, here's what I've done before, here are links to everything I've created. If it's sound design, you can have a website linking all the different music you've created. If it's graphic design, you can have links to all the different graphics you've created. If it's game development, you can have links to the actual games you've created. These things need to be done before you get hired on in a video game company. They're gonna want to see what have you done before. And remember, this doesn't mean you had to have worked in the video game industry previously. It just means you have to prove to them that you're able to handle what they're gonna throw at you. And most of the people that had success in the video game industry taught themselves coding, taught themselves game development, made their own games, didn't even go to school for it. This is something people have self-taught themselves and then shown to companies, look what I'm able to do on my own. And while Full Sail College and all these other places are available to assist you, a lot of the people that game companies are looking for to hire have the motivation internally and the high enough intellect to be able to learn it on their own and create something dynamic. People ask me what you get paid in the video game industry, and it's tiered based off the position you're going to be having depending on how high up you go. Just like everything else. The difference being with video games is expect to get paid about 25 to 30% less than a comparable position in a different industry. The video game industry does not pay. You have to love what you do and not be doing it for the money. One thing I learned when I was a QA tester, I was talking to my boss one time and saying, wait, hold up, how come I'm only getting $10 an hour doing this? And if I did QA testing for a bank, I'd be getting like $30 an hour. They said, nobody wants to do QA testing for a bank. Everybody wants to work in the video game industry. And that holds true for every position higher than QA tester as well. Everybody wants to work there because it's a fun environment. You get to play games. You get to work on stuff that's entertaining. You do things that people dream of doing while other people are running numbers. So expect to get paid less because of that. It's almost more like a supply and demand thing. There's a lot more supply of people who want to work in the video game industry than want to work in investment banking doing development for systems. Other questions I'd ask potential employees, depending on the position, would be, are they able to relocate? How mobile are they? A lot of these video game companies may be local, but sometimes they'll relocate the entire team to a completely different place across the country. And I need to find out how mobile these people would be if they were to be hired on, say, by EA and then moved to West Virginia from California because a new studio got purchased, or their current studio that they were at got closed and they need to move them somewhere else. Another thing about the video game industry is it is incredibly unstable. More than anything else I've ever worked in, it has an ebb and a flow with some serious wild swings. So expect not to stay at a company for much longer than a year or two unless you are either spectacular or they're making the next huge game. Look at Epic with Fortnite. Those guys are doing alright for the long run. Don't know how long it's gonna last, but it's doing a hell of a lot better than most games right now. And like I said, most of these employers are looking for personalities. People are quirky in the video game industry. Don't shy away from your stories. Don't shy away from what makes you special. The history you have with video gaming. Why you have a passion for it. Some fun anecdotes. Think of those before you go into the interview so that you have something to speak to if it comes up. Because believe me, stories in the video game industry will come up during interviews. If you're wondering what attire to wear for a video game interview, it's not typically a suit and tie type situation. Oftentimes, it's jeans and a polo shirt. But one thing I would suggest is run it by the hiring manager on what they expect the dress code to be for the interview, because that can also vary widely based off the company that you're interviewing with. Having the opportunity to work in the video game industry, and hell, even have my name in the end credits of video games in the PlayStation 3 was a dream come true, and it's something that I wish everybody could experience the feeling of at least once in their life. So with that being said, I hope this video was helpful as far as giving a brief overview, broad, showing what's going on with the entire hiring process in the video game industry, and letting you know that there are positions that are available, but you really need to put in the effort and work on your own first before a company's even going to consider you. Let me know down in the comments below, have you ever considered working in the video game industry? Does this change your mind knowing how much work you have to do behind the scenes just to be able to speak to something in that interview? Would it be worth it for the low pay? For me personally it was, but only for a specific time in my life. I could not do that for the long term. It would have ended up killing me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.